Oh, I am a computer. I've been programmed to tell you that your future isn't what it used to be, and neither is mine.
Mankind is entering a future of unlimited possibilities. Tomorrow's city is now being constructed in steel and concrete. Engineers work on a bold new space-age city in the middle of the Arizona desert. What we see may give us a glimpse of life in the 21st century. There are some who say future life isn't here at all, that it exists somewhere in space. Is this tomorrow?
This series presents information based in part on theory and conjecture. The producer's purpose is to suggest some possible explanations, but not necessarily the only ones, to the mysteries we will examine.
Man's curiosity has forever been the key to his survival. The drive to explore the unknown, his fate. His greatest discoveries have been the result of confronting his greatest fears. Of all the mysteries we confront, it is our future itself that remains the most elusive. What lies ahead is the question we posed to some of America's most prominent futurists.
By the middle of the next century, I suspect that there may be literally millions of people every year moving out into space and back again, quite routinely.
I think that most of the existing diseases like cancer, heart disease, and so forth will be either totally conquered or much diminished in frequency by the end of this century.
The evolution of the computer is going to impact everything that we do, including even the evolution of man himself.
I think science is becoming so powerful that the problem that will face us in the future is how to decide what we want, not how to decide what we can get.
Today, prediction of the future is the full-time study of a specialized group called Futurists, 20th century visionaries. The mysteries they probe may hold the key to not only the quality of our life, but to our very survival. If they are right, we may soon realize our wildest dreams. 70 miles from Phoenix, on a remote desert bluff, a daring step into the future has been taken. A prototype for space-age cities is under construction. It is called Arcosanti. When construction began 10 years ago, critics labeled it a utopian fantasy. Today, many see it as the genesis of an entirely new type of city. It is a city without streets, a city without cars, a nearly self-contained environment. Though only an experiment, the dream of Arcosanti has attracted worldwide attention, for few theories of the future are actually committed to concrete and steel. Its present population is comprised of an international community of engineers, architects, and students who are convinced that Arcosanti holds the key to the future of city living. So convinced that they work under the blazing Arizona sun as unpaid volunteers. Though a folly to some, to these people, the city represents a chance to build the future around them. They are dedicated to the vision of one man, maverick architect and philosopher Paolo Soleri.
The main relationship of Arcosanti to the environment is in terms of a very limited encroachment on the environment, because what we are doing in Arcosanti takes the place of what we might be doing in a suburban development that might take 20 square miles. That means the community has to have many levels. But through that kind of containment and miniaturization, the impact is going to be minimized on the environment. In addition, the ability to use less resources is going to be also very important. So we are encouraging a notion of frugality, which is not just the individual commitment, but it's commitment of the habitat itself to be frugal.
The name Arcosanti comes from the word arcology, a combination of architecture and ecology. One of the most daring goals will be to bring large-scale agriculture to the heart of the city in the form of giant hothouses. A prototype of this system is operating in Massachusetts. This energy-regenerating hothouse is the work of the new Alchemy Institute. Gary Hirschberg.
This greenhouse is 100% solar heated in a climate that is really quite nasty. The heat that comes in here comes through the glazing and bounces off the back wall down into the ground, is absorbed by the ground, and some of it goes to the top of the room where it's either sent outdoors if there's too much heat, or it's collected by a fan whose opening is up here, which takes the heat that has gone to the top of the building and pumps it into this big box here, which is filled with fist-sized rocks. And the hot air heats up the rocks, and then at night when the fan runs, it blows through the heated rocks and takes the heat from them and pumps it out through louvers across the plants and keeps them warm. The rest of the heat that comes in here is absorbed by the fish tanks. The fish tanks are green because they have algae in them. Algae is what the fish eat, but algae also absorbs solar heat, so the water gets slowly but surely hot. Not as hot as dishwater, but hot enough to keep the place warm at night when it's freezing. This combination of architecture and the agriculture and the aquaculture works together without using fossil fuel energy, and it makes the possibility of a greenhouse in this climate commercially viable idea again.
These ideas have already been incorporated into the structures at Arcosanti. Yet, despite the proven practicality of such innovative systems, futurists like Solari are often considered eccentric dreamers. Are he and his followers putting their hopes into a false future?
The notion that I am a utopian or a dreamer, I think it's totally out of contest with my model of reality. I don't believe in the Garden of Eden. I don't believe in utopia. I don't believe in equity in terms of having it tomorrow. I don't believe that life is an easy gliding through few years and so on. So what we are doing here is something very hard to do, difficult to implement. We are absolutely knowledgeable of our limitations in terms of intellect, in terms of resources, in terms of skills, but we think that we have enough reasons for doing what we are doing to stay with it. But there's nothing utopian about Arcosanti. Utterly nonsense. Utopia is for angels. We are not angels.
Still, man has always had visions of a utopian society. How we build our future may now be the result of a remarkable machine.
Hello, I am a computer. I'm happy to give you a demonstration of the way I speak. Pretty good, isn't it, when you consider that English is not my native language, and I'm still learning. Soon I'll sound even better.
We have taught computers how to talk. Current research is developing computers that can think. Already, they serve as the crystal ball of our future. No tool will play a more important role in shaping our lives. With the computer, our imaginations will be able to explore at will. The children of today are growing up using computers as previous generations used pencils and books. As adults, these children will operate computers with unbelievable capacities. Computer expert Lou Crane speculates on where computer technology is heading.
If we were to try to look just 50 years down the future, the impact of computers is going to be absolutely phenomenal. The evolution of computers is going to affect everything that we do, including even the evolution of man himself. Today's computers certainly cannot think. They can only perform pre-coded tasks in a precise, one-step-at-a-time type technique. Basically, they're performing tasks at a tremendous rate, but they're not thinking. But down the road, I'm sure that programs will be written that will allow computers literally to think, to be able to react to their environment, to change their environment, to program themselves. And this will be utterly necessary for a space probe, as an example.
The extreme distances between solar systems require many years of travel. Though we rely on computers in space today, what if a computer could think?
Space is, by its very nature, the unknown. So there's no way that you can tell a computer how to respond to every situation, because you don't know every situation. So the computer has to be able to think for itself, has to be able to adapt to things that we can't even imagine. It may well be that the first contact between Earth and another planet will not be between a man and the other species, it'll be between computer and the other species. Indeed, it may be between two computers, Earth's computer and their computer.
You're watching Sleepcore. Pleasant dreams.
Oh, yes. The stereo sound. You know, that kind of thing can make a big difference when you have two good ears.
Unpredictable.
MTV was in stereo, yes, and if I recall correctly, it really kicked butt.
MTV. Someday we'll look back at this and laugh.
This class is perhaps the greatest discovery of the 25th century. A dwelling called the split-level ranch. Marvelous.
What's this, Professor?
Ah, a spherical object they used to hurl at each other with great velocity.
Professor, what's this? What is it?
I have no idea.
Pepsi, the choice of a new generation.
And this is Futuroscope.
No question about it, the 1990s have really been the Apple decade.
1997. Apple turns 20 this year, and everybody's celebrating, from Cooper Pedy to Cupertino.
Just look anywhere in the media between 1987 and 1997. Apple is in everything, from news to stand-up comedy.
They're everywhere.
This is the city, Los Angeles, California. I work here. I'm a computer.
They're everywhere.
They wrest a precarious living from the desert here in Ulaanbaatar, relying upon only instinct and several Apple computers.
They're everywhere, and they're all communicating.
Flight 472 is now boarding. The white zone is for loading and unloading.
I don't think that last paragraph presents our case as strongly as it could. How about this?
I think we should say something about wine and cheese.
Perhaps.
Beauty, mate. Now throw in a stack of biscuits and we'll have a party.
Almost all the growth in the computer industry in the last decade happened in one place, the desktop.
And of course, that means Apple.
This being 1997, some people feel the Apple II concept is getting old. We don't agree.
The Apple II VSOP, the computer for the new millennium.
Very smooth old processor.
And today at Apple Computer, another milestone. This is the 50 millionth Macintosh produced since 1984.
And in the last 10 years, we've made a lot of big improvements, and some small ones too.
Presenting the Vista Mac. The Vista Mac 2, a new, thinner profile.
Of course, the classic Macintosh design is as recognizable as the Coke bottle, Pepsi bottle.
Computer speed doubles every 2 years, computer memory doubles every 2 years. "32 times the speed, 32 times the RAM, and 1/10 the parts. Weird.
So I told my wife, this is the 90s. We do more with less, right? You don't believe me? Open up your computer. What's in there? Nothing. There's nothing in there.
We build them simply, so they're simple to fix.
Module 2 is about to fail. Your key operator has been notified on the Apple Fix link. Replacement should take about 3 minutes.
I don't get it. What'd I do wrong here?
Please plug in the keyboard.
Oh.
A computer that talks is no big deal. A computer that really listens, that's a breakthrough.
I'm afraid I'll push the wrong button and damage something.
How long have you had this feeling?
Apple computers have always been friendly, but we've gone from friendly to understanding.
Good morning. This is October 5th, 1997. I have checked 4 wire services, scanned 8 magazines and 18 newspapers, and accessed the New York, Tokyo, and Paris databases. Here are 3 items you may be interested in.
With a complicated system like this, I usually need a little help. Now you'll need financial management with 83 workstations, 2 domestic sites and 2 international, sub-networks within each site.
Yes, and I'll need mainframe access throughout.
Here's a possible configuration. We installed one like it last October.
How's it working out?
Hello, I'm Stephen Smith, Vice President of Intercon. Our Apple financial management system has revolutionized the way we do business in just 6 months. It helped our bank buy it.
Custom design in manufacturing really had an impact on how sales does its job.
The specifications are turned into a design at the Technology Center. Time between customer input and product output has been compressed.
We cover the world, not just selling, but designing and manufacturing.
One of 6 worldwide technology centers. The Iceland facility will design and build computers for Arctic markets.
One thing that hasn't changed since 1987, growth.
When Apple Computer revenue broke $5 billion back in 1991, John Sculley's reaction was characterized as that of a Cheshire cat grin. Today, Apple Computer revenue broke the $20 billion mark. Sculley had this reaction. In other news, Jack Tramiel opened a new restaurant today.
I wanted Apple to be the world's business leader in finance, manufacturing, marketing, and R&D for the 90s.
We all expected Apple to become big, very big, but without becoming big business.
In 1987, the people at Apple didn't completely understand the significance of their work, but they suspected it might turn out to be very important. What can I say? Now we know they were right.
A lot has changed in the last decade, but a lot hasn't changed. In 1997, Apple is still a company with vision, and the Apple vision is stronger than ever.
You're watching Sleepcore, media for insomnia.
As well as being tested in the Arctic and the Sahara, the new Audi Coupe has been tested on the world's toughest street.
Please do not be alarmed. This is the first attempt to communicate across time. This experiment is being sponsored by First Direct to celebrate our 21st anniversary. For us, it is the year 2010. To celebrate the 21st anniversary of First Direct, we have returned to the date of our launch. We return you now to your programs with best wishes for your personal happiness in your own future.
We are entering the thermal galaxy. Do we need more 7-Up?
What other soft drinks still exist?
Quick computation shows none. Why? Maybe because, unlike others, 7-Up has no caffeine, artificial color, or flavor.
I always knew the Cola was the soft drink of the future. Crisp and clean.
For unparalleled refreshment. The one. You said it.
7-Up, the Cola.
The the one.
Well, here's one man's idea of what tools an executive may be using in his office in a few years' time. Bob, is this a so-called paperless office we keep hearing so much about?
No, of course not. Not for the 1990s. In fact, there will still be books, as you can see here, and magazines.
Thank goodness for that. I'm pleased about that.
And waste paper bins. But if you want to keep important letters, like this one, for example, here, you'd have a fax reader, machine reader over here. I can put it in there very carefully.
Now, this is just a mock-up of what was going on, but inside there you would expect a facsimile reader that only reads a sort of picture of the actual letter. It's not reading the content of the letter.
Correct, but then we digitise it, and then we display it on the screen.
So you can see it on your little screen here.
That's correct.
See. And where are you going to store it?
I'm going to store it in what we call a read-write. There you are, read-write optical reader. Optical reader. Notice the size of it, and consider that a year's amount of work and information can be stored on a thing that size.
I presume you could also send it off to your central database as well. That's your local one in your office. But how are you going to relocate it once you've stored it in there?
Well, first I've got to store it, right? And for that I use voice recognition. For example, let's store this one. I could say, letter, dated March 3rd, 1996, David Allen, store.
And to retrieve it?
I use the same approach.
I notice no cord on your
No, we called as communications then, infrared communications.
It still has a dial on it. Does that mean your voice recognition isn't quite good enough?
Oh, no. You see, it's got a fail-safe mechanism. Should I have a cold and lose my voice, I can use a dial-up.
OK. Show us more about your screen.
Yes, the screen is an advanced form of the flat screen which we have coming in today. But now, it's a large size.
Now, it acts as a storage media as well. When you switch the computer off, it doesn't just disappear. It's there permanently and will stay there forever unless you changed it.
It's really electronic paper. And we can shuffle the paper around the board here and control it.
Show me the sort of thing you might be doing.
Well, first to control it, we have, in fact, a touch overlay. So
it acts as an input device as well as an output device.
Correct. Now, let's take, for example, the company has these branches, you see? And I want to find out what's going on in Birmingham. So I press Birmingham. Let's look at the problem areas there. So we see there's staffing, sales, production. let's look at sales. And then we find a display here, right, showing the sales record for the quarter. And I notice that the video sales have fallen and the telecom sales have fallen.
Now, this is just a mock-up, of course. But you expect it to come up as quickly as that?
That's correct, yes.
And what would you do about it now?
Well, now I want to, in fact, ring up the head sales manager and pass him a message.
Because he might not be there.
Correct. But what I'm going to do is send him an annotated message on this piece of text. I'll do that. Harry, Bob, the sales are falling in your area and I want to know immediately. End message. And it's gone.
Of course, you could do that today, our voice annotations. What's actually happened, but it wouldn't, of course, recognise your voice. It's looking up his name, it's finding his address, it knows exactly where to send the message, and it's taking that message and sending it digitally into his computer, and then when he comes into his office, he can display it and find out what's happening.
A user agent behind it.
That's great. Suppose he's in his office. What have you got to offer
This
there?
is important enough that I would like to have an eyeball-to-eyeball confrontation with that sales manager and his key staff. So, into teleconferencing.
Hi, Mac. Oh, hi, Bob. Good to see you. Say, Mac, I've been having a word with Francois about that contract you mentioned, and we seem to be in total agreement. Yes, Mac, if you are happy to, just say the word and we go ahead.
Well, it'd be great when we have that. In fact, British Telecom are promising something like that by the mid-90s. Is that correct?
That is true, yes.
Well, that's wonderful. But this is, you know, for your formal business place. It's where you're actually working. Very often an office is actually used for meetings, more informal communications. What can technology offer there?
Well, we must be careful. The office in that time would be, in fact, for interactions. Notice that the profile of the flat screen doesn't obstruct any of the communications around the desk. And, for example, let's look at this doodle I'm doing here. I could display that doodle on the same flat screen, but now used as an electronic whiteboard.
I see. So, but what happens if he wants to change it, if you're with a meeting of your managers? Does he have to push you out of the way and get at your work desk?
No,
here?
you'll have, in fact, something like this, an electronic pen, which you can, in fact, go up there and make adjustments and changes to it.
So I no longer have to use my Polaroid to take pictures of my whiteboard to see what's going on and record it?
In fact, on my flatbed printer here, since you've been a good boy, you can have a copy.
Well, that's very, very good indeed. Now, what happens when you're away from the office? You've got all this equipment when you're sitting here. What happens when you go on tour or you're outside of your office?
Well, under here, I have a keyboard. The intelligent
you have a keyboard.
Oh, yes, it won't go away.
You haven't got rid of that yet.
Oh, no. And this, in fact, is a computer. You can expect by the mid-1990s to have the mainframe of today squeezed into a keyboard like this, the intelligent keyboard. And it also will have something like 20 megabytes of RAM memory. So I can, in fact, open my briefcase, and, of course, you have another flat screen there.
Which, again, doesn't need to be plugged into the computer to keep its memory in there. Everything is recorded and
That's
kept
right.
there.
And I have the telephone, which, in fact, is a cellular telephone, and which I can use to, in fact, contact you on the way home, in case I've forgotten to tell you something.
Is it science fiction? Do you really believe it's going to happen?
It is certainly going to happen. All the technology is here today. The problem is putting it together.
Of course, the important part you've missed out is inside that computer itself, and that's all the software. And integrating the system together is one of the great problems of today, isn't it? How much is it all going to cost, though? Isn't it going to be too expensive for people to be able to afford to put these into their offices?
No, I think the technology's prices are going to be rapidly falling, particularly the optical disc, the flat screen, and voice recognition. They're all here now. It's